Today, we're going to be looking at how to install a welt pocket in anything. I did something a little different this time and made a sample. So this is the finished product of what we are about to make. I did that because welt pockets can be placed anywhere. So imagine that this piece of fabric it's attached to is the front of a suit jacket, or maybe it's a decorative pant pocket. Ooh, maybe the other way around. The only thing that you would have to change based on the placement is the shape of the pocket bag. So here you see you would draw a drooping pocket bag like a pant instead. Up here, of course, the shape that we have for that suit jacket, perfect. Now the welt can go by many different names. Double welt specifically because there are two little welts there you see. And if those welts were even smaller, maybe you would just call it piping or a piped pocket. All the same thing, lots of different names, one way to do it. So let's jump to our diagrams. Yes, it's going to get crazy. First, we're going to open up this fabric and just pretend that this is a piece of something that we're making. So this garment could be anything, doesn't matter what, but you're going to put your pocket placement markings directly on the garment. Even worse than that, you're going to draw them on the correct side of the fabric, the right side of the fabric, because this procedure is going to begin on the outer right side of the garment. So you take a look at this. This is what I got here. This is going to be for ultimately a 5-inch wide pocket. This is for a women's jacket. This is something I use personally. However, for larger hands, 6-inch may be more standard, so 1 additional inch. We're going to go with these measurements though for now because this is what I use on almost everything that I do. So what we've got here is 3/4 of an inch wide. This Y shape and line in the center is going to be our cut line later, and these edges are going to be our pocket placement or our welt placement. So I'm going to transfer all of these markings onto my quote jacket front, let's call it. So again, I'm drawing a 3/4 inch by 5-inch box, and then I'm going to draw a center line 3/8 up, 3/8 up, and then divide it. This will make more sense as I get drawing. So let's get started. All right, 0, 5. I am using a heat, I was going to say resistant. What's the opposite? I'm going to use a heat disappearing pin. And that way I'll be able to get rid of these marks just by putting my iron on it. And then right in the middle here is 3/4 of an inch. Good. 3/4 of an inch. And half of 3/4 is 3/8. Normally I wouldn't use so specific and hard to remember measurements, but in this case, sorry, it matters. 3/8. This clear ruler, any clear ruler, is going to be 1000% essential for doing this. If you're adding this pocket to a garment that already exists, you don't need to change anything. That's also really important. It may be challenging. It's much easier to add this pocket to a garment that you're building, admittedly, because you're using a flat piece that hasn't been connected to the rest of its garment yet, but still possible, still the same procedure. Okay, ooh, let me mark in that one a little bit better, just really quickly. Okay, good. 5 inches long, 3/4 inches high, and center marking. Okay, now I'm going to come 1/2 inch down and make a mark from each side. This Y shape cut is the total crux of this whole situation. it is the way that you are going to turn those welts in and create this entire design. So 1/2 inch in from either side, and then I'm just going to connect my little dots here. If you want to make these lines dotted so that you know that they're going to be cutting lines, you can do that now. I just keep all of the lines the same, but truly not a big deal. Now, these cutting lines will come back into play later. Okay, we're going to cut out our actual pocket pieces now. Okay, I'm just making this piece smaller so it's more manageable. Great, stay right there, little suit jacket front. Pockets are really interesting because most patterns that you buy will come with one, and that's great. But the truth is, a lot about pockets are totally negotiable. So I use this pattern that I've made on almost any item that I want to put this designed pocket into. So I'm going to give you the exact measurements on this because you don't need a pre-purchased pattern for it. You just need the measurements. So I'm going to tell you what they are. For my finished 5-inch pocket, my pieces are going to be 5.5 inches wide. That's going to give me 1/4 inch on either side. Let me show you what they are first. Welt. This is a 1.5 inch by 5.5 inch piece. Cut 2 of these. These are our little welts that we're going to fold in half and are going to meet in the center, like little kissing lips. Pocket facing. This will be important later, and I will explain why. We're going to cut 1 of those. And then we're going to cut 2 pocket bags. One more time. 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches. 2 welts. Cut 2. Pocket facing. 2 inches wide by 5.5 inches long. Cut 1. And finally, 5.5 inches wide pocket bag, depth, whatever you want. Let's see what I actually have this at. I've got this as a 9-inch pocket. I have a sneaking suspicion that I created this pocket bag specifically because I like the way that it fits my cell phone. So most likely that is what I chose. Don't get hung up. The measurements are both very important and negotiable. This is very important. All of the widths, the lengths, of the pockets and pocket pieces matching, all in a line like that, really important. Length of the pocket bag, not that important. This is definitely a procedure that you're going to do many times before you actually get it to where you want it to be. So know right now that if you're doing this the first time with me, you're going to screw it up. And then you're going to do it a bunch more times. This, as with so much of classic tailoring, is always going to be trial and error for a really long time, and then eventually you'll like the way that you do it. And by then, you will know how long you want your pocket bag to be. Okay, let's cut these out. Now, I know what some of you will say. You didn't block this muslin. And you know what? You're right, I didn't, because I don't care. This is just a sample, and we are not going to be really intense about this right now. We're just gonna knock it out. Shitty first drafts. You ever heard that? That's what this is. For you, not for me. I swear this is the right way. Okay, I'm gonna pop that on there. And I am using my ruler just because I usually have had either too much coffee or too little coffee. And so my hands are sometimes just doing what they want. I've folded over this fabric, by the way, so we're cutting 2 at once. Choo-choo-choo. And me in the middle. Good. Great. Pocket bags, trash, keep it all organized, keep it all together. And then 2 adorable little welts. No, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna hold it, and then I'm gonna go like this. Honestly, because you know the measurements, you don't even have to have pattern pieces for this. I mean, why? I just told you what they're going to be. This is ridiculous. Let's do this. 5.5 is here and there, and 1.5 wide is here and there. I always make 2 marks so that they can be lined up together. Perfect. Great. And then keeping everything nice and square. Gonna do that. Okay, cool. Great. Throw all of this junk away. Now we have our 2 little welties. Those are adorable. And, oh, I guess I should have said, we are cutting pattern pieces for 1 single pocket. So if you've got 2 matching pockets, you're going to double everything. So 2 facings, 4 welts, 4 pocket bags. Okay. Also, I'm cutting everything in muslin, but for the pocket facing and the welts, that'll be your outer fabric, the fabric that you're actually using. And for the pocket bag, you're going to use a pocket lining, either cotton or silk or an acetate, something of that kind, something that is thinner than your outer fabric. Okay. Done, done, done. That is all we need our cutie little pattern pieces for, and our diagram, but I'm going to keep it close because I, as a categorical rule, do not keep things in my head. I don't. I write them down. I reference them when I need them. Okay. Now, we are back to our jacket. First, we're going to take our welt pieces. You know what? Let's make this really sharp. Let's go fold our welts and press them in half at the iron. Let's do that. So exactly what it sounds like. I'm folding these 1.5 inch pieces exactly in half. So now they will be 3/4 inch wide, just like that. You're starting to see it. I know you can tell. Yes, the telltale signs of a double welt coming your way. See, they're gonna mate right in the middle like that. I know that's impossible to tell on top of my muslin ironing board, but that's where we're headed. Okay, let's take them back. Now, we're gonna put the raw, oh, reminder, you are on the right side of the fabric, correct side of the fabric still. We're still there, okay? Now, raw edges along that center line, and we're leaving a 1/4 inch extended past the final pocket placement. So remember, the pocket placement drawn in is our final measurement. So these welts should extend a 1/4 inch on either side because we cut them 1/2 inch bigger. Okay, great. Now I'm going to place that right there. And when I lift this up, that line should be in the center of my welt right there. In fact, we know that it's 3/8 inch down. So if you would like, you can lay that right here and draw again a 3/8 inch line directly on top of your welt because you're going to be sewing directly through it. There we go. Let's see if that's working. Oh, it isn't. Maybe I'm out of ink. Oh, it just wanted more love. Okay, I get it. I understand. Cool. That is our stitching line. So I'm going to put maybe 2 pins in it. And then again, up top. Raw edge in. They should be touching each other. And since you've already lined up your 1/4 inch overhang, you know that if you line that up, it'll be exactly correct. And we're going to do that 3/8 inch stitching line again. Again, I'm giving you all of these measurements because this is really a universal pocket. You, after you get the hang of it, are welcome to make changes, but these measurements in particular, they all fit together for this procedure. So start with this and then make your changes. The last important thing that we're gonna do before we go over and stitch is we are gonna measure in. Where are we gonna stop? Ooh, I have to look at my notes again. 3/8 of an inch? Yes. 3/8 of an inch all around. I'm gonna put a little block there to myself and say stop stitching there. Again on the other side as well. This is a hard one because I want to explain it. I want to just like tell you all of these reasons why, but I know from personal experience that it would just be easier if we sew and do it, and then it will make sense why we're going to do this. So as a reminder, we're going to start here, stitch directly through, stop there. Start here, stitch directly through, stop there. And then the magic will start happening, materializing. Okay, let's go sew. Alrighty, there we are at our starting point. And I am gonna backstitch there. I'm probably gonna go down to a smaller stitch length of just about 2. And I'm holding everything in place, stitching straight down that center of that line. Right directly to my next stopping point and backstitching. Awesome. Other side. Let's get that right. X marks the spot. Now we're going to be clipping into those corners, as in actually cutting directly into them. That's why that backstitch is going to matter. So do not skip it. Definitely backstitch there. Commit. Okay, cool. Great, we got our little diagram underneath there. Yay. All right, let's jump up to the iron. So, just to recap, this is where we sewed our welts, on the right side of the fabric. I'm gonna flip to the wrong side of the fabric and take a weft woven fusible that I actually buy in a band like this because I use it so frequently for general tailoring stuff. And this is the perfect interfacing for like a suit jacket cuff or a waistband or whatever. It also is perfect for this. And I'm gonna slap that directly behind where I just sewed and fuse that down really good. This is gonna help us after we make this next cut and in general to really reinforce the entire area, the stitching, and the essentially holes we're about to make, because that's what this pocket is. This pocket is so interesting because unlike a slide pocket, seam pocket, something where you're just kind of, even a patch pocket where you're just adding it onto a jacket, this baby is a total commitment. You will ruin the piece if you get it wrong. You know, I mean, I didn't want to lead with that, but so again, practice makes perfect. So don't just like jump right in. Definitely take your time with this. This is, you know, like a cocktail that you would make just for your spouse and then like watch their face. And then if it goes well, then that's when you make it for guests. It's like that. Okay. So now, good case in point here, I want you to recognize, I used a dark interfacing so you can actually see it, which I'm not crazy about. Keep that in mind for your fabric and do choose something such as a lighter fusible. I should have chosen a white, but that's okay because I do want you to be able to see this whole process. That is the point of the sample, and I will keep samples like these for when I need a refresher as well. So I like being able to see it all. Okay, let's lift up these little guys. Oh, shit. I used the heat pen. Damn, I'm gonna have to redraw it. That's okay, because I know all my measurements. Hang tight. You know, I could cut all of this good stuff out. I could pretend that I teach a master class and that I'm just really good at this and I remember everything, but that's not actually true. That's just good editing. I think you all know that. So instead, we're just going to, you know, do this the real way, I'm pressing those back just to like hold them in place for myself. 3/8 of an inch up will give us that center line back. One more time. Cool. And then I'm going to lift up the little edges of my sides to see where my stitching ended. Right there and right there. And I'm just going to draw my Y back in. Good. And I'm putting little marks there so that it's easier for you to see. And then let's measure. Good. Okay. Okay. Now, you can kind of do this anyway, but I'm going to sort of just poke my little scissors through and cut straight down the center. Great. 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 This is the tricky part. When you snip this, you must snip directly to that stitch, but not through it and not past it. Ooh, it's so intense. This is the most intense part. So you got to see where that stitch is, see where that stitch ends, and snip directly to it. But not through it or past it, or you'll get holes. Yes, this is the hard part. It is so intense. Again. And you know what? Before I cut that one, see how these are perfectly lined up like this? I undershot this one a little bit, so before I make that last snip, I'm going to extend my stitching 2 more stitches on that one to line them up really quickly. There we go. And again, I am going to backstitch on this. Cool. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And now I'm going to kind of pull that back so that you can see it. And then we're going to do our last cut. Directly to it, like within a few little woven threads. Oh, it's so hard. It is so hard. That is the hardest part. All right. I'm going to press these flat again before I shoot them through. And now, this is when it starts to get kind of like, okay, now I understand what's going on. It's sort of coming together. Come to the back, and we're going to pull those guys through, including the edges that we did not sew down and what we would call the prongs. Often, the prong, or that Y shape, that little triangle, we're going to pull that guy back as well. So I'm going to pull all of this out and give it a quick press, and then I'm going to show you again what I mean. Because flipping it out and all of this is definitely technical. Cool. So when I lift up the ends, you see that little guy? That is what keeps everything together. That is like the single thread of the universe here for our welt. Same on this side. There you go. You see him right there, okay? Now, I'm going to give this a little more pressing, and if you want to be like a real fancy tailor, one of the things that you could do right now to keep these all together while you're finishing is you could actually baste or hand stitch the welt itself together. You can just try to press it together, but if you baste it together, those will stay really clean and close, kissing just like that, while you're adding the pocket bags behind. Totally your choice, but you can do it. Do we want to do it? Nah. So I like to sort of batch my little sections of sewing since I need to do a lot of this on the table. So we're gonna pin both our little triangular pieces together and our pocket facing on one single pocket bag.
Return. Good.
Great, just throw him on there like that. We're gonna stitch him on. Now, this is a great time to tell you why. Why would we need one of the pockets to be 2 inches longer than the other pocket bag? Well, because one of these is gonna attach to the top welt and one is gonna attach to the bottom welt. And to get them to hang together, one of them has to have a little extension. Not only that, but it's also going to be really pretty because though we can't tell in this scenario, that pocket facing with that nice matching fabric from the outside will be visible when you slide your hand into your pocket. So that's kind of cool too because you've got this welt and you won't be able to tell when it's slightly open or when you put your hand in because it'll have that matching outer fabric just at the top. And then the rest of it will be lining, pocket bag, regular material. Cool, okay. Let me scoop that guy back in there. It's just looking so lovely. Look at how fun that is. It's really more obvious when I hold it up like that. I love it. Okay, the other thing that we're gonna do is set this like this, facing the front, roll it back until we have our little triangle exposed on top of the 1/4 inch extended that we didn't sew down from the welt. Can you see that? Very, very important. So we're rolling the garment back. This is one of the things that would probably be really difficult if you already had a pre-assembled garment that you were adding the welt to. But again, not impossible, just tricky. That's what it looks like. And then we're going to do that on the other side as well. Again, pushing the fabric back, lining the welts up, and pushing our little triangle or our little prong, whatever you want to call it, down. And we're going to stitch that guy totally flat over on both ends and stitch together our pocket bag. Okay, let's go do those two things next. Alrighty, so we're gonna have 1/2 inch seam allowance, and again, even though my pieces of fabric are the same, this is us sewing the pocket facing onto the top of only one pocket bag, and then we're gonna press that open. Cool. And now for the trickier one, we're gonna have the garment facing up, and then we're gonna roll that back, and then we are only stitching right there. Ooh, and it's gotta be right on the edge. And this, again, also has to be totally exact. Definitely backstitch. But must be exactly in line. And when we fold the garment back, we'll be able to press out that little bit of wrinkle, but see how we want that really nice hard box. Great, let's do the other side. Same thing again, just stitching that cute little interface triangle and stitching directly on the section that sticks out, but not any of this folded section. Very, very, very important, because that'll create puckers on the other side. And it should be, if you're using a wool or cotton, somewhat stiffer fabric, you should be able to fold it right back and see right out the gate, even without pressing, if you got it close. And it looks like we did. Oh, I'm so excited. I love that. This is a really satisfying one. I mean, if you like make it through all of the horrifying parts, very satisfying. We're going to press again. And I am going to bring over my other pocket bag without the facing, and we're going to pin those directly on right here and then jump directly back to the sewing machine. I've gotten really into lining materials recently. I took a course from a super impressive tailor who had this incredible bullfighting scene, the entire scene on the inside of his jacket. Of course, he had to design the lining so that it didn't have any seams running through it so that you could see the entire thing, but it was the, not the bullfight, is it called bullfighting? Where they do the red cape thing? Yeah, it was magnificent. And in the MoMA, I don't remember the name of the painting, but he found a guy that got rights, limited rights, to be able to print art from the MoMA on lining material, and he started lining his own jackets with it. So insane. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. So again, we've got one. Let me show you maybe from this side. Does it make sense what we're doing here, where one has to attach up here and one has to attach down here, and that's why there needs to be about an 1.5 inch difference? I think so, but we're gonna find out. Let's start with our longer pocket. The longer pocket with the facing needs to be the pocket that is attached to the upper edge. So if you need this, write top and bottom on your garment so that you don't mix these up. So first, I'm gonna attach this to the seam allowance only. Very important. We are not going to be seeing any stitching from the surface of this garment. So I am holding the interfaced seam allowance that has a welt attached to it, and I'm lifting it up to put that pocket facing on it. Okay? Cool. Then I'm going to scooch you out of the way, and I'm going to do the same thing opposite direction for the bottom. He's going to get sewn on down here. Now, if you cut all of these pieces together, hopefully all of the edges are matching up for you so that nothing needs to be centered. It should all line up together, 5.5 inches. Cool. So see how uneven they are right here, right now? But then look what will happen when we flip them to the other side. They should match up perfectly. Okay, let's go stitch those 2 seams right there, and then it'll just be the pocket bag left. So close. We're past the dangerous part, by the way. Like, most of these things you can do now and you won't screw it up. Like, you're good now. So take a breath, maybe have a second cup of coffee if you're me. Second. And I also don't know that you need to stitch directly on top of the previous stitching. Just give yourself a 1/4 inch seam allowance instead of a full like half or 3/8. We're just attaching this bag. So it's a little loose, you see? It doesn't need to be exactly anywhere. Flip this guy out of the way. Shoop. And then other side. And I'm doing this with the interfacing facing up because you see that cut edge? That's where our triangle was cut. And so I just want to make sure I'm catching it, catching all of the layers. And do make sure that you're not catching any of the garment while you're doing this. Doo-doo-doo. Great. Now, should all line up? Yes. Okay. Okay. We don't even need to go back over to the iron for this. We can actually just go ahead and jump right to finishing the pocket bag. Do you see right there? This includes our welt seam allowances, our pocket facing seam allowances, and our little baby triangle. I want to hold everything down and pin through all of those layers. You see that? Okay, let me show you again. Right from here You are pinning through everything, including your baby triangle, but not the outer. Now, when we sew this, we're going to try to sew it as close to that stitching line for the triangle as we possibly can. And then we're going to continue down, sewing our pocket bag together. If you're lining your jacket or wherever this is going, you won't need to finish the raw edge of the pocket bag. If it's not lined, it's going to be an exposed edge. This would be when you could serge it or finish it, you know, however you're going to finish it. All right, and then we get to the other side here, and again, we have all these layers, and we are picking up every one. And we're going to pin all of that together. Okay, cool. Now, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm rolling the fabric of the actual garment off to the side, just like we did when we originally sewed that little triangle. And I'm going to start all the way at the top here. Oop, that became unthreaded. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Almost there. There we go. Okay. Start all the way at the top there, and you see how I'm trying to sew almost directly on top of that stitching again. That's just another reinforcement, which is great. And then I'm coming directly down, and I'm probably at about a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the pocket, though I will admit it doesn't really matter too terribly much. And I'm just feeding this right along. And then as I'm coming up the other side, I'm folding that fabric back again, just to stay out of my way. And now we're heading back up the other side, and we'll be finishing over top of that other little triangle. I'm always pulling the pins out ahead of time because I don't want to ever risk running over them, particularly in this case, because they are going to leave unseemly bumps in the stitching that are really important with something that is kind of this particular. Great. Awesome. Awesome. And now I'm flipping everything back. Shoo. Look at that. Ooh, I'm so pumped. All right, let's give it one more press. We're almost there. We are there, I think. The final ultimate test. This is not the time to do this, but we're just, you know, gonna do it anyway. How many things can you fit in your pocket? That should be a separate video, right? What do you put in your pocket? For me, definite, full cell phone situation there. Perfect. Perfect. Look at that. Oh, I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. All right. I think that's it, folks. Now, while you're working on the remainder of whatever this garment is, let's say, I would, now that I've thought about it, I would base this, whip that close with a hand stitch, because as you were working and manipulating other sections of the jacket, you don't want this to keep gaping open like that. So do go ahead and stitch that close just to help yourself, also so that you don't get like things stuck in there while you're working on it. But other than that, you are all set. What's the last step? Oh, I know you've seen this before on fancy jackets. The very, very, very last step would be to do a tiny, beautiful pick stitch right here, right along the edge, in a semi-contrasting color. So like if it was a navy, it would look really nice in, say, a pastel pink or a dark red, something like that. Maybe I'll show you that one next time. That'd be a fun one. Thank you so much for joining me. Comment, question, ask questions on this one. I know that you have them, but I believe in you, and we'll see you next time.